Hello, Rashidalai. Welcome to second session of Dharma sharing from the Jewel Ornament of Liberation by GAMPOPA. And we are now trying to understand the trainings of the Bodhicitta, trainings of aspiration Bodhicitta, as well as training in the action or engaged Bodhicitta. So yesterday we talked about trainings of aspirations Bodhicitta, and GAMPOPA did mention there are 5 different trainings that one is encouraged to do so in order to maintain and keep the aspirations Bodhicitta in our mind, so they will be able to progress the aspirations Bodhicitta. We will be able to deepen the power of aspirations Bodhicitta, as well as we will be more stable and confirm the aspirations Bodhicitta practices. Okay. So before we do so, yesterday I forgot to recite refuge vows and generations of Bodhicitta before the teaching. So before I forget today, so I would like to request all of you to fold your hand and take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha by reciting the refuge prayers as well as generations of Bodhicitta. Sangye Jodang Zoge Jonam La Changchu Bardo Dane Gyapson Che Dage Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Rola Benjer Sangye Duparesho Sangye Jodang Zoge Jonam La Changchu Bardo Dane Gyapson Che Dage Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Rola Benjer Sangye Duparesho Sangye Jodang Zoge Jonam La Changchu Bardo Dane Gyapson Che Dage Jinso Gebe Sonam Ge Rola Benjer Sangye Duparesho Semjen Tamjen Dewa Dang Dewe Gyudang Dembare Gyurchi Dungan dan dungan ge gyudan dawa gyoje dungan meben dewa damba dan mindawa gyoje ngire jada ngidan dawe danyum chembo la ne barangiro je semje tamje dewa dan dewe gyodan dembara gyoje dungan dan dungan ge gyodan dawa gyoje dungan meben dewa damba Mindawa gyoje ngire jada ngidan dawe danyum chembo la ne barangiro je semje tamje dewa dan dewe gyodan dembara gyoje dungan dan dungan ge gyodan dawa gyoje dungan meben dewa damba dan mindawa gyoje ngire jada ngidan dawe danyum chembo la ne barangiro je balden zawe lama rinpoche dagi jiwro be menden shola Kadin Jembe Gone Jesonde Gozon Doge Ngondo Zado. Okay, so taking refuge in 3 jewels and generations of loving kindness and compassion is always very, very important. And especially since we do not know how to follow the path that lead us to the liberation, since we are still overpowered by our negative afflictions and emotions, so we don't have the capacity or we don't have these realizations of ultimate nature, knowing the ultimate nature. So therefore, in order to reach that ultimate goal, in order to actualize that ultimate nature or ultimate truth, we need to have some guidance. We need to have proper guidance, and we need to depend upon someone else. And the best dependence for us for our development of our spiritual path is the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Buddha as the guide who has shown us this beautiful path that lead us to liberation, and the Dharma itself, the path, which is the main kind of path or antidote that we should apply, and the Sangha or companion or the individuals who are sharing the same kind of motivation of freeing ourselves from the suffering of samsara and try to attain the perfect and complete Buddhahood. So therefore we take refuge in 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Likewise, we also generate bodhicitta, and generations of bodhicitta depends upon the generations of loving kindness and compassion. And why we do so is because we understand that we live in the interdependence nature. We all are interconnected. So therefore, if you want to live happy life, if you want to have successful, and if you have a good companion or good friends around you, then obviously your reaction, your attitude, your way of thinking, your way of speech, how you perform your speech, and the way of your physical act, all matters. If you be kind and nice to someone, obviously they will feel the same thing. Most of them will, will have a good kind of inspiration from your act, and they will also act in the same way. So that is why in order to live in this samsara, we need to depend upon one another. We are all interconnected, and because of that reason, we should not be arrogant. We should not have so much pride and jealousy. If we are be more kinder, more responsible, more concerned for others' well-being, then obviously you will have the same consequences, and then you will have better life, so to speak. So because of that reason, whatever you are now experiencing, either that is the experience of external phenomena of form, sound, smell, texture, taste and texture, this all comes from by there being some other individual. Because of their contribution, these things are available for you, and because of that reason, since we are interconnected, if we act nicely, if we think nicely, think positively, speak nicely, speak with respect and value of the others, rejoicement of others' success, and this will all bring kind of happiness into our day-to-day life. So therefore, generations of bodhicitta or loving kindness and compassion is very much needed, or it is something that is advisable to generate. So therefore, that is another reason why we are generating loving kindness and compassion in our practice. So and another one important of the generations of bodhicitta is also to testify, to examine your motivation, especially in the practice of the Dharma. Whatever Dharma teaching that you are hearing or listening, whatever Dharma teaching that you are contemplating or meditating upon, whatever Dharma practice that you are really applying into your day-to-day life, what is the purpose of this? The purpose of doing all this, according to Mahayana vehicle, especially after generations of aspirations bodhicitta, all this purpose should be benefiting other beings. Remember, when you first give rise to bodhicitta, we have two objectives. The one is attainment of complete and perfect Buddhahood, and second objective was even more important. For what purpose? Why you want to attain Buddhahood? You want to attain Buddhahood because you want to benefit other beings. Isn't that so? So we should always remember that our goal was benefiting other beings. In order to benefit other beings, you need to have some kind of capacity, power, or knowledge or wisdom. That is why when we give rise to bodhicitta, we said, okay, I would like to benefit all sentient beings, but I cannot do now with being very ordinary being. You can at least benefit one or two beings, but without that kind of ability, without attainment of Buddhahood, without attainment of Buddha's quality, you will never be able to benefit more beings or all sentient beings. So because of that reason, you said that you wished to attain perfect Buddhahood for the benefit of other beings. So therefore, you said that, but then in the real action in the real practical way. Are you doing it or not? So you have to examine your motivation every now and then. Am I being selfish with my practice? Am I being self-centered? Whatever teachings that I'm listening to, contemplating and meditating upon, am I just doing this for my own benefit, or do I still remember that I need to benefit all sentient beings? Do I still remember that one of the main objective of my real practice is the benefiting sentient beings? So you have to examine your motivation every now and then. And then if you find there's some involvement of self-center, or if you find there's some involvement of forsaking some individuals in your path, in your practice, then you should always clean that. You should always purify that mind, and then you should always renew and refresh that mind, and then you can always take bodhicitta vows. Unlike the other vows, patimoksha vows, this bodhicitta vows is always renewable. Remember, it's always renewable. So you every time when you break your vows, you should always renew your vows. You should always refresh yourself, and then you should always remember the importance, the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, the importance of your actions towards benefiting all sentient beings. This really matters in your path. So yesterday GAMPOPA was mentioning the trainings of aspiration bodhicitta, and he did mention there are 5 different types of trainings in aspiration bodhicitta. The first one was not forsaking sentient beings. Second one was recollecting the beneficial effects of aspiration bodhicitta. Third one was gathering up 2 accumulations of merit and accumulations of wisdom. Both are equally important. And then we have the fourth, practicing the enlightenment mind repeatedly. That means we always should remember you should always refresh yourself. You should always examine your motivation, and then if you see any kind of faulty there or self-centered attitude, you should always purify those and again refresh and try to think for the benefit of all sentient beings. And finally, the 5th training was accepting the 4 virtues and rejecting the 4 non-virtues. So among these 5, we have studied the first one yesterday, and today we are going to talk about the recollecting of the beneficial effects of bodhicitta. Okay, so I'll read the text. Recollecting the beneficial effects of bodhicitta. That's the second training. The training in recollecting the beneficial effects of bodhicitta is the method by which bodhicitta cannot be weakened. So otherwise, there's chances of weakening your bodhicitta. You may have a very kind of excitement before, when you first give rise to bodhicitta, when you first hear the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, when your teacher was telling you about the so beautiful and wonderful beneficial effects of bodhicitta, and you are so overwhelmed and you give rise to bodhicitta. But then slowly and day by day, month by month, then you have loosened your bodhicitta. You are not so enthusiastic. You shouldn't. Your optimistics are being decreased, and then your interest has been decreased. That this can happen. So therefore, it is always advisable that we should recollect the beneficial effects of bodhicitta every now and then, so that and because of by that we are always we can always uphold the importance of bodhicitta. So the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, we have talked this in the previous chapter. So I'll just, for our reminder, I will just read few points of beneficial effects of aspirations bodhicitta from the previous chapter. There are many, but there are countable and uncountable beneficial effects of aspirations bodhicitta. And GAMPOPA did also mention that beneficial effects of cultivating aspirations bodhicitta were as follows. 1, enters into the Mahayana path. That's one thing. the differentiating between whether you are the follower of Mahayana or the Hinayana, and the differentiating these two is whether you have aspirations bodhicitta or not, right? So once you have aspirations bodhicitta, you enter into the Mahayana gate of vehicle. Then second was it becomes the basis for all bodhisattva trainings. So if you have aspiration bodhicitta, then obviously next is engaged bodhicitta, isn't it? So in order to have engaged bodhicitta, first you need to have aspiration bodhicitta. So when you have aspiration bodhicitta, when you give rise to aspiration bodhicitta, then you become the basis for the engaged bodhicitta. Then you will be able to practice 6 paramitas for the benefit of oneself and others. Likewise, all the evil deeds will uproot it. So that is to say, when you give rise to aspirations bodhicitta, what you do is you perform the accumulations of merits and wisdom. So when you perform accumulations of good merits, obviously this involves of rejecting 10 non-virtuous acts and accepting 10 virtuous acts, and that is when you are involving in the virtuous act, obviously the non-virtuous acts are discarded, isn't it? The non-virtuous acts are not there. So since non-virtuous acts are not involved, then you have less chances of experiencing in the suffering of lower realms. So that is why it is like all the evil deeds are uprooted because of being engaged in the virtuous act. That is the antidote for non-virtuous act. That's the contradictions of both these two. So once you are in the positive side, obviously the negative sides are no more there. So this is how you become the kind of antidote towards your non-virtuous act. The non-virtuous act are the cause of the origin of your suffering, isn't it? So when you dispel or discard the origin of suffering, then there is no chance for the non-virtuous act or the evil to grow. So that's why it is said evil evil deeds has been uprooted or will be uprooted. This is the beneficial effects of aspiration bodhicitta. So therefore, isn't this wonderful? When you uproot non-virtuous act, when you uproot evil acts, then obviously as consequences you will experience all the good things, good experiences of good feelings, good things, appreciated by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on and so forth. Your teacher, your Guru will be happy, your Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will be pleased with your act, because they always encourage us to involve in virtuous act and abandon non-virtuous act for the well-being of oneself and others. So therefore, obviously, they will be very happy. They themselves had applied this same path. There's no difference at all. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the great lineage masters of the past, and our own root Guru, all these beautiful masters, who has always shown us the path that leads us happiness, peacefulness, virtues, harmonious. These all have applied the same applications, the same path. So therefore, they encourage us to do so. They have followed this path. They had experienced the results, and because of that, they encourage us. They show us the path. That's why they will be pleased if you really implement whatever instructions that you have heard from them. Remember, attending your spiritual master, there are different means and ways of attending your spiritual master. Some by offering food, clothing, shelter. Some by offering incense, flowers. Some by offering food, money. Some by offering faith and devotion and so forth. But the best offering, or the best to attend your spiritual master, is to follow the instructions, implement the instructions that you have received from them, isn't it? So therefore, that is why when you applied these beautiful instructions into your day-to-day life, obviously your gurus will be so pleased with you. This is beneficial effects of aspirations bodhicitta here. Unsurpassable enlightenment becomes rooted. So evil deeds are uprooted. When the evil deeds are uprooted, then obviously the enlightenment is rooted there, because you have abandoned or discarded the non-virtuous act, that which is the origins of suffering. Once you have uprooted the origins of suffering, then automatically you have rooted the cessations of suffering, that is nirvana, isn't it? Enlightenment, whatever you want to use it, enlightenment, nirvana, liberation. So that is rooted. When you are free from the origins of suffering, obviously you have planted the seed for the cessations of suffering. And then other beneficial effect will be, one will be obtained limitless merits by after having give rise to aspirations bodhicitta. Then obviously this is something that is advised by our gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past. Obviously it has lots of merits, because it always involves of the positive sides. It always encourages us to do good things, virtuous things, positive things. That's why obviously your merit will multiply or increase merits. Like even if you are not doing anything, like if you are sleeping, so to speak, when before you go to sleep, if you give rise to bodhicitta, and then you sleep, then your sleep will also you can transform into positive deeds, good deeds. And in the morning, when you just right after you open your eyes, if you remember the importance of bodhicitta, if you recall the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, and then if you give rise to bodhicitta, refresh yourself, recite those words of generations of bodhicitta, when you first where you took bodhicitta from your masters, those beautiful words in the ceremony, remember. If you can recall these words and try to refresh yourself every morning right after you open your eyes, this is something very beneficial. It will encourage us, it will give us positive vibration. Then your whole day, no matter what, whether there's a good or bad things taking place, you are not overwhelmed. You still have this positiveness within yourself. You're not hopeless, so to speak. So these are very good things to remember, recollecting the beneficial effects of aspirations bodhicitta. All the Buddhas will be pleased, as I mentioned earlier, obviously, because they have followed this same path, and they have reached the enlightenment state of mind, and they encourage us to do so. So if we are doing it, obviously they will be happy. When your children are following what your parents have instructed them, your teachers have instructed them, if they are following in the right track, parents, they will be very pleased to see their children growing up and being mature and involved in positive side. They are in the right track. So they will be obviously very pleased. So likewise, Buddha will be very pleased if you are implementing the Dharma in Dharma as a Dharma, pure Dharma, without having any kind of negative thoughts. Then obviously Buddha will be very pleased with you. One becomes useful for all sentient beings. Obviously, when you give rise to aspirations bodhicitta, you said you will be benefiting all sentient beings. So when you said you will be benefiting all sentient beings, you have this good attitude, you have good thought in your mind, you are prepared in your mind. So since you have these good thoughts, you have this good concern for others' well-being, you have this thought of compassion, want to see sentient beings free from suffering of samsara and pain, free from pain and suffering, then obviously when you have that thought in your mind, and in action, when you see around, when you look around, when you encounter those people in need of help, you definitely will not hesitate, giving your hands, sharing your wealth, giving them instructions, guiding them, so on and so forth. Wonderful things that you can do. And it all came because you have given rise to aspiration bodhicitta. You already had this kind of good thought in your mind, And when you have this good thought in your mind, you are ready. And then when you see people in need of help, you will not hesitate, forwarding or passing your good speech and passing your good physical action, giving hands to them. So this is one of the beneficial effects of aspirations bodhicitta. One quickly attain perfect enlightenment. So if you are always in a good track, if you follow the Dharma according to the instructions of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas and your root gurus and lineage masters, then there's the guarantee of reaching that destination. And this is why it is meant by one quickly attains perfect Buddhahood or enlightenment. So these are some of the beneficial effects that we studied in our previous chapter. So I just want to recall them. So since it is talking about, in the training itself, it says that you should recollect the beneficial effects of aspiration bodhicitta. Okay. And the Lamb of the Path to Enlightenment also says the quality of cultivating the mind of aspirations was explained by the Metripa in the Blending Noble Soul Sutra. Thus it says, and so forth. So there are lots of beneficial effects mentioned by different great bodhisattvas in different sutras, and also in different way of presenting the kind of importance of bodhicitta. So there are many different types of teachings by different great masters and great bodhisattvas. In that sutra, the beneficial effects of bodhicitta are illustrated through about 230 similes. So you can see how much beneficial effects are there. In that particular sutra, they mentioned 230 similes, examples of the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, aspiration bodhicitta. All these beneficial effects are abbreviated as 4 categories. Thus, O one of noble family, bodhicitta is like the seat of all the Buddha's qualities, and it dispels all property like Vaisravana and so forth, refers to the beneficial effects of oneself. So there are lots of different beneficial effects that is mentioned by different great scholars and great bodhisattvas. But if you want to combine them all, you can combine them all into 2: benefiting yourself and benefiting others. Benefiting yourself does not mean that it's self-centered. There's no kind of motivations of like self-centered attitude, but it automatically benefits yourself too. Because when you implement the Dharma, especially accumulations of two accumulations of merits and accumulations of wisdom, when you do that, obviously, if you are involving in virtuous act, obviously you are protecting yourself from falling into the non-virtuous act, from falling into the lower realms to experience suffering. You're protected. So that's beneficial. It benefits yourself too, isn't it? Even though you don't have this self-centered attitude, even though you don't wish that I should be free from the suffering of samsara, you don't have that attitude, right? Because you have dedicated this for the well-being of others. You said that I want to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others. In practical, you are doing this. You are trying to refrain from involvement of non-virtuous act, and by doing so, obviously you are protected from falling into the lower realms, and that benefits you. At the same time, when you reach some level of realization, your motivation was always the same, of benefiting others. So you are benefiting others spontaneously, and that is known as benefiting others. So beneficial effects of aspiration bodhicitta, there are many, but if you combine them into you can categorize them into two major kind of categories: benefiting yourself and benefiting others. Likewise, here it also did mention. So, beneficial effects of oneself. This is what is meant by beneficial effects of oneself. And the next is to fully protect all migrators like shelter, and it supports all sentient beings, so it is like ground. So and so forth refers to the beneficial effects of others. So you are protecting other beings. You are giving instructions, sharing your wealth, knowledge, educations, all these wonderful things which benefit others. So therefore, beneficial effect of others, involvement of two. Okay, because it is victorious over all the enemies of afflicting emotions. That is why it is like a spear, and it completely cuts the tree of suffering like an axe, and so forth refers to the beneficial effects of cutting off all the unfavorable conditions. So these are some of the beneficial effects of generating aspiration bodhicitta. It accomplishes all aspirations like a noble vase, and it accomplishes all wishes like the precious wish-granting jewel. So because once you have dedicated all your activities of dharma practice for the benefit of all sentient beings, then it's like wish-fulfilling jewel. You become wish-fulfilling jewels of others for other sentient beings, because you have dedicated. No matter what, whatever involvement, whatever good thoughts, whatever good speeches, whatever good actions, physical actions, involvement of, you have dedicated for the benefit of all sentient beings. So there is no any single slightness of self-attitude there. No protecting for yourself, no attachment is involved. And when there is no attachment is involved, there is no aversion. Aversion only takes place when there is attachment. When you have something that you hold of, when there's something that is fixed or fixations there, then if someone else is kind of becoming obstructions for that, you give rise to aversions, jealousy, stinginess, and so on and so forth. All these non-virtuous or negative emotions and defilements will do occur, right? So since now you don't have anything to focus on, your all aim is to benefit others. So then you become transform into the wish-fulfilling jewel for others beings. So this is why it is said you become like a wish-fulfilling jewels. And so forth refers to the beneficial effect of establishing all favorable conditions for the other beings. In this way, one recollects all these virtues. One will cherish this precious bodhicitta highly. So when you see these beneficial effects of aspiration bodhicitta, you value it so much, you will value it highly, because you see its effects of benefiting so many beings without exception, without condition. Without demarcation. That's why it becomes limitless, boundaryless. Your act of compassion, your act of generosity, your act of giving, moral ethics, your act of diligence, your act of patience, your act of samadhi meditation, your act of insight, realization, all this now becomes limitless, boundaryless, no demarcation, because you have dedicated all this for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception. That is why it is so precious. That is why if you are able to recollect this every now and then your faith in devotion, your determination in order to uphold aspiration bodhicitta will be very stable, and you also at the same time will have lots of joyfulness while you practice. You don't feel like You don't feel like, oh, I have to practice Dharma, oh, I have to finish my chantings, I have to finish my recitations of mantra. You will never think like that. You know, rejoicement will fully followed within yourself. You'll be involved with the rejoicement of, with the rejoicements of any act that is involved here. You have all the joyfulness in you when you do any sorts of beneficial activities for the well-being of others. That's why it is said here that one will cherish this precious bodhicitta very highly. In this way, when one practices, one sustains this mind without weakening. Therefore, one should persistently recollect all these beneficial effects. At least one should recollect them once in every session. So this is why we are, always advised by our teachers that we should always renew our bodhicitta. We should always remember the beneficial effects of bodhicitta. We should always recite the words that renews our bodhicitta, that refreshes our bodhicitta. Okay. Now the third training is the generating of two accumulations of merits and accumulations of wisdom. Third, the training in gathering of the two accumulations is the method of increasing the strength of bodhicitta. The very purpose of generating two accumulations is to strengthen your bodhicitta, to become more powerful. So accumulations of merit and accumulations of wisdom. The Lamb of the Path of Enlightenment says, the accumulations of the merit and wisdom is the nature of the cause of perfection, and so forth. When you are involved in gathering of the two accumulations, obviously that's nature of reaching perfectness. So when you are involved in one of those gathering of accumulations, suppose when you are trying to practice generosity, so to speak, when you are practicing generosity, obviously that is one way of perfection, isn't it? There are 6 different perfections. We call them 6 paramitas, and the nature itself is already the perfection, or it will bring to us the ultimate perfections. It is the method and the way how we can become perfect, perfections of our act of 6 paramitas. So therefore, accumulations of merits and accumulations of wisdom itself is the nature of perfection. The accumulations of merit refers to the 10 virtues activity. KHENPO did say that the accumulations of merit is the involvement of 10 virtues act. Remember 10 virtues? 3 from physical, 4 from speech, and another 3 from mind, which makes 10 in total. So 10 virtues, the 3 virtues of body: not killing, not stealing, and not involvement in sexual misconduct. Likewise, 4 speeches virtues, remember, and another 3 mental virtues. So if you are involved in this 10 virtues act, then you are already generating the accumulations of merits. The 4 methods of gathering and so forth. The 4 methods of gathering, that refers to there are 4 means to attract the sentient beings in order to bring them into the Dharma. So practicing generosity, then speaking of the beneficial effects of bodhicittas or Buddhas, Dharma and Sangha, or simply speaking about beneficial effects of bodhicitta or 3 jewels or 10 virtues. Then teaching them the real Dharma, and then not only teaching them real Dharma, but as you, from the teacher's side, you also implement those instructions. Remember, we have saying of talk the walk or walk the talk. So teacher also should walk the talk. That means teacher also should, perform what he preaches. Otherwise, the followers will have negative thoughts about teacher's activity. They will give rise to non-virtuous thought of teachers. So therefore, these are the 4 different types of methods to attract sentient beings in order to bring them into the Dharma. So that's why it is mentioned here. This is also of the generations of accumulations of good merits, the 4 means of attracting the students or sentient beings, and so forth, are related to the skillful methods. So these are considered as skillful methods. So accumulations of good merit is considered as a skillful method. And next is the accumulations of primordial wisdom. Refers to these practices realized as being fully free from the 3 spheres and so forth. So the realizations of primordial wisdom, in other words, it is free from the 3 spheres. Well, when you practice the accumulations of merit, obviously, for example, if you are practicing generosity, for example, in the giving practice, when you are giving something to some individual who are in need of help, what we do is we should give. We have this sphere of thinking, oh, I am as a giver, and you also have this sphere of thinking that the other receiver as a receiver who are in need of help, and then the act of giving or the substance of giving, whatever things you are giving, you have this thing involved of I and the other taker, I as a giver, that individual as a taker or receiver, and then the act of that generosity. But when you when you become more advanced of that practice, then you will be able to free yourself from this attitude of I as a giver, them as a receiver, and whatever the things you are giving as an object. So this is what it meant by primordial wisdom, which is the knowing of the ultimate truth, or in other words, you can call this the ultimate bodhicitta. Okay, so that's our goal. So in order to attain or realize ultimate bodhicitta, we should first engage in the relative bodhicitta, and relative bodhicitta can be categorized into 2: aspirations and engaged bodhicitta. Okay, yeah. In this way, gathering to accumulations establishes the power of bodhicitta in one's mind. Therefore, persistently gather the 2 accumulations. Even by reciting one short mantra, one can gather 2 accumulations. So this should be done at least once in each session. So at least, if you are able to remember the importance of 2 accumulations, these 2 accumulations, gathering of 2 accumulations are very, very important. It is the cause for the ultimate enlightenment. The speech as an assembly says, "Today, how should I accumulate merit and wisdom? How can I benefit sentient beings?" Bodhisattva constantly contemplate in this way. So it says that we should, if you want to become real Bodhisattva, you need to practice this. You need to always think that how can I benefit sentient beings? How can I attain to Buddhahood? How can I realize this ultimate nature? So this should be always in your mind. But usually we forget these things, right? When we are in the meditation state, we sometimes remember, but during our post meditation time, when you're involved in our daily day-to-day life activities, then most of the time we forget this. So here GAMPOPA encourages us that we should always remember this, the importance of gathering of the two accumulations as a Bodhisattva. Then the fourth training is the practicing the enlightened mind. So what is this? So we should understand this. Fourth, practicing the enlightened mind repeatedly is the method for deepening bodhicitta. The Lamb for the Path to Enlightenment says, after developing aspirational bodhicitta, one should make a great effort to deepen it. Obviously, if you just give rise to aspiration bodhicitta and then slowly, if you become less interest, if you pay less interest, and if you become more laziness in the practice of the bodhicitta, and then obviously it will weaken. So instead of that, we need to deepen it by giving that in our mind, recalling the importance of bodhicitta, as I mentioned earlier, the beneficial effects and the importance of accumulations of merits and wisdom and so forth. So here it says, in this there are three topics: practicing the mind of the cause of enlightenment, practicing the mind of actual enlightenment, and the practicing the mind of the actions of enlightenment. So what are they? These are the practicing these three deepens bodhicitta. So remembering or repeating the enlightened mind at the beginning as a cause, and repeating enlightened mind at the actual practice, and then the practicing the enlightenment at the actions of activity, mind of the actions of enlightenment. So here the first one, as a cause, persistently develop loving kindness and compassion towards all sentient beings, at least one in each session. So this is the cause for your bodhicitta. Okay, so always remember to recollect or the importance of loving kindness and compassion. Developed or generate loving kindness and compassion. This is the cause for your actual bodhicitta. Second, the practice of actual enlightenment is the desire to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. The real actual bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is the genuine wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So you should always remember this. So this will be the actual enlightenment, mind of enlightenment. Then contemplate this 3 times in the daytime and 3 times at night. Use this detailed ceremony for cultivations of bodhicitta, or at least repeat the following once in each session. So either you can just remember the importance of bodhicitta, or just remember yourself or remind yourself that, oh, I need to attain bodhicitta for the benefit, I need to attain enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. And this will deepen your bodhicitta. Or simply recite these words here: I take refuge in Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and all other good deeds, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So this is what we usually recite, remember? So when you remember, when you recite, recitation, it's not just only recitations in numbers, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but while you recite, remember the meaning of this recitation. That is important. That will give you some kind of internal strength. That will give you some kind of interest, faith and devotion. Otherwise, if you just recite mantras or recite repetitions, it will become just repetition only. There's no any feeling, isn't it? We can recall when you do practices. Most of the time we just recite, and we don't really focus on meaning. We don't really focus on what we are saying at the first place. So GAMPOPA advise us, encourage us to remember the meaning of what you are reciting. So like here, when you say, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I have achieved enlightenment by the merit of generosity and all other good deeds, that means other 5 perfections or paramitas, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So here it includes taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. It also includes the aspirations bodhicitta and engage bodhicitta by practicing the 6 paramitas, and then it also includes the giving rise to bodhicitta. Here it says, I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this sentence are very, this sentence are inclusive of taking refuge and generations of bodhicitta, and not only the aspiration bodhicitta but engage bodhicitta as well. So if you remember to recite this by understanding the meaning, by focusing the meaning of what you are saying, will also encourage you, will also deepen your bodhicitta. That's what GAMPOPA wants to tell us. Okay, there are 2 subdivisions in the mind of the actions of enlightenment: practicing the attitude of benefiting others and practicing purifications of one's own mind. The first is the practicing attitude of benefiting others. Cultivate the mind to dedicate and give your body, wealth and all other virtues of the 3 times for the others' benefit and happiness. So that's the practice of generosity and so forth, that is dedicated for the benefit of others. Second, practice purifying your own mind. So that is for yourself. You have to purify the origins of suffering. You have to purify if there's any kind of negative afflictions and emotions taking place in your mind. So you have to purify that too. So this is how you progress in your Bodhisattva way of life. Second, practice purifying your own mind. Always watch your moral ethics, because as being ordinary now, even though we give rise to bodhicitta, we have not reached that level of becoming real bodhisattvas. The real bodhisattvas will become once you obtain the first bhumi in the path of seeing. So until then we are imitating ourselves. We have to imitate ourselves. We have to constantly give rise to bodhicitta, constantly think the beneficial effects of bodhicitta, and constantly try to involve in the gathering up to accumulations. Then if you have this interest and determinations and diligence, obviously one day you will reach the first bhumi, that is path of seeing, and where you becomes the actual bodhisattvas. Until then, we need to encourage ourselves, we need to examine our mind every now and then, and if you find any kind of faulty, any kind of non-virtuous thoughts involved in your mind, you need to purify them and refresh them, and then becoming another new fresh bodhisattva every now and then. This is very important. Likewise, GAMPOPA also encourage us to do the same here. Practice purifying your own mind. Always watch your moral ethics and abstain from evil deeds and afflicting emotions. So this is what we are encouraged to do. So we need to examine our body, speech and mind. We need to examine what kind of word we are using, what kind of speech we are using when you are talking to your colleagues, your friends in day-to-day life. What kind of thoughts are there in your mind for others, whether you have jealousy, pride or aversion thoughts, or whether you have loving kindness, compassion, concern, rejoicement thoughts, patience, forgiveness. So whatever thoughts keep good to occur in your mind. When you see there's a good thoughts arising in your mind, you appreciate it, you dedicate them for the benefit of others. Whenever you find non-virtuous thoughts of hatred, aversion, jealousy, ill will, then you always purify those, and you again become new, fresh Bodhisattva. This is how you developed. Then finally, the fifth training of aspiration bodhicitta is the rejections of 4 unwholesome deeds and acceptance of the 4 wholesome deeds. So here, training in rejections of the 4 unwholesome deeds and acceptance of the 4 wholesome deeds is the method of not forgetting bodhicitta. The very purpose of this is to not forgetting the bodhicitta. The Lamb of the Path to Enlightenment says, one should fully protect the training as it is explained in order to recollect this bodhicitta even in other lifetimes. So it's very important. It's not just the matter of one lifetime practice, it is the matter of practice of life after lives. So this is how we progress ourselves. Where is this training explained? So it's explained in the Kashyapa requested sutra. The 4 unwholesome deeds are stated. Kashyapa, the bodhisattvas who possesses 4 qualities will forget bodhicitta. So this, I think, the unwholesome deeds. If bodhisattva who has this unwholesome deeds, then he or she will forget bodhicitta. And what are those 4? They are the first one, deceiving the Lama and those worthy of worships. So deceiving your root guru or your spiritual master or every other bodhisattvas who are worthy to worship, who are very good, who are very genuine, practicing the Dharma. So if you deceive them, that is considered as the unwholesome deeds, causing remorse in others. So this is one. Okay, deceiving your root guru, your spiritual master, or whoever those who are highly practicing the Dharma or highly practicing bodhisattva, bodhicitta. So if you deceive them, that is considered as the unwholesome deed. And the second is causing remorse in the others when remorse is not appropriate. So remorse, when we need to develop remorse, we need to develop remorse of our non-virtuous act, isn't it? When you have spoken something bad of others, when you have used some harsh words that has hurt others, insult others, for those acts we need to remorse, right? We need to purify, we need to regret of all those things. But if you generate or remote for something good, then that is not appropriate. So if you try to generate remorse for the good deeds that is benefiting more beings, then that is not appropriate. So if you do so, then it is considered as another unwholesome deeds. The third one is through aversion, saying improper words about bodhisattva who has cultivated bodhicitta. So that is like insulting bodhicittas through your speech. That is also considered as the unwholesome deeds. And behaving deceitfully towards sentient beings. So we need to actually be kind, be nice, we have compassion towards all sentient beings, because we have taken bodhisattva vows. We have already generated bodhicitta, and we have committed ourselves that we will be able to benefiting other beings. But if you then behave deceitfully towards all sentient beings, then obviously that is unwholesome deeds. Okay, so these are the 4 unwholesome deeds that we need to abandon. We need to reject these 4 unwholesome deeds in order to train the aspirations bodhicitta. Okay, so that's the importance of training here. The 5th training, that is to reject the 4 unwholesome deeds and acceptance of the 4 wholesome deeds. The next one, the four wholesome deeds are also explained in this way. Kashyapa, the Bodhisattva who possesses four qualities, will remember bodhicitta immediately upon birth in other lifetimes, until he or she obtains the heart of enlightenment. Which are these four? These are not telling lies consciously, even at the risk of one's own life. That's one thing considered as a wholesome deed. Obviously, truthful speech is always virtuous. Generally, the second is generally establishing all sentient beings in virtue. Yes, we need to encourage other beings, other sentient beings. We need to show them, we need to guide them, we need to give them proper direction, we need to show the path, through the path, so that this individual, all these sentient beings who are now suffering, can be free from the suffering and the cause of suffering, if we show them the path, and if they implement the path, if they follow the path, then obviously there's this is how it works, this is how it should be applied. So the next is particularly in the virtues of Mahayana. Sorry, this is together. Generally establishing all sentient beings in virtues, good involvement of 10 virtues, and then particularly in the virtues of Mahayana, that is to say, advising them, giving direction to them for the importance of loving kindness and compassion, encouraging them to practice 6 paramitas, and so on and so forth. These are particularly Mahayana vehicle instructions on Mahayana vehicles. Then the third one is the seeing bodhisattvas who have cultivated bodhicitta as Buddhas and proclaiming their qualities in all 10 directions. So if you see someone who has given rise to bodhicitta, who is practicing the 6 paramitas, so you have to have you can have the positive thinking, positive seeing them as a Buddha, and also proclaiming their good qualities to others, so that it will print a positive seed. It will plant a positive seed to the sentient beings. So these are something that is encouraged here. And finally, the fourth is this sincerely maintaining the altruistic attitude towards all sentient beings. So this is also one of the 4 wholesome deeds that is considered. That is advised here, that is encouraged here, that we should implement this. Okay. So the explanation of these 4 non-virtuous or unwholesome deeds, and the opposite of that is the 4 virtuous deeds. So explaining of the first unwholesome deed, when one deceives the spiritual master or the abbot or the master or one worthy of offerings by telling a lie with an insincere mind, your bodhicitta is lost if the antidote is not applied within a second, whether they are aware of the lie or not, whether they are pleased or not, whether the lie is big or small, whether they are deceived or not. Doesn't matter. If you have deceived sentient beings or your spiritual master, then even whether they have noticed it or not, whether that lie is small or big, doesn't matter. You should apply antidote right away. Okay, that's what it means by the first wholesome deed is antidote. Desist from consciously telling lies, even at the risk of your life. Likewise, explanations of second unwholesome deed. When someone performs virtuous deeds and you intended to make them regret it, this is what it means by causing remorse, causing remorse in others which are not appropriate. So if someone is doing good deeds, if someone is practicing generosity, and if you say, oh, you shouldn't do that, this is something not advised by Buddha, by telling lie and discouraging them, this is not appropriate. Instead you say, oh, very good, I rejoice in your good deeds, this is what exactly Buddha and the Bodhisattva has taught us, you should be doing it, I'm very happy that you are doing it, this is what we have to do, right? Isn't it? So if you, in the opposite, if you try to make them regret it, then your bodhicitta is lost. If you do not apply the antidote within sessions, The second wholesome deed is antidote. Establish all sentient beings in virtues, particularly in the virtues of Mahayana. Instead of causing them regret, you should encourage them to implement virtues, and particularly the virtues of Mahayana. And the third explanations of unwholesome deed, when with hatred you use improper words with a person who has cultivated bodhicitta, insulting bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is Lord if the antidote is not applied within the sessions. Whether you express ordinary fault or fault of dharma, whether directly or indirectly, whether you insult Bodhisattva directly or indirectly, telling to the third person, whether specific or general, whether gently or harshly, doesn't matter. Insult is insult, even though you use it very general way, gentle speech. That has no excuses and whatsoever. Whether they heard that insult or not, doesn't matter. You have already lose your bodhicitta. You need to apply antidote. Whether they are pleased or not. The third wholesome deed is antidote. We need to see bodhisattvas who have cultivated bodhicitta as Buddhas and make effort to proclaim their virtues to all 10 directions, so that the sentient beings will have connection by hearing the qualities of that bodhisattvas. This is how it plants kind of connectivity, connections, dharmic connection, karmic connection with the students and the teacher. This is what we are encouraged by GAMPOPA. This is what we should be doing, training in aspiration bodhicitta. And finally, the fourth unwholesome deed, the explanations of fourth unwholesome deed is, when we deceit, you commit fraud towards any sentient beings, bodhicitta is lost if the antidote is not applied within a session, whether he was aware of it or not, whether he or she is caused harmed by it or not, doesn't matter. You have already broken your bodhicitta, so you need to renew it in the proper session. The fourth wholesome deed is antidote. Maintain the altruistic attitude towards all sentient beings and wish to benefit others without considering your own profit, without exception, without your looking for your own profit. Try to generate bodhicitta for the benefit of all sentient beings. Try to maintain the altruistic attitude, positive attitude for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is what is advised by GAMPOPA here in the training of aspirations bodhicitta. So that concludes the chapter 10, that is the trainings in the aspirations bodhicitta. This is the 10th chapter dealing with training in aspiration bodhicitta from the jewel ornament of liberation, the wish fulfilling gem of the noble teachings. So we'll stop here for today and we'll continue next session. And till then, take care and have a wonderful night. And we should not forget to dedicate the good merits that we have accumulated by sharing this dharma. We should dedicate this for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sonam de damje zigba nye topne nye ve danam pamje ne gega naje balau droba ye sebe zole dowa rai shon changjo sencho rimbo che mage panam ge gyo che geba nyamba meba ya gong ne gong do pe warai shon.